don't know if you've noticed, but there are an absolute ton of hunting magazines being published every single month. And so much in fact that I'm betting most of you don't have the time or interest in going through all those different magazines and trying to find what's interesting and relevant and helpful to you. I, on the other hand, being what my wife considers to be a magazine hoarder, I suppose, I do have the time and interest to do that for better or for worse. So with that being said, what I wanted to do today was read through 6 of the most recent, most interesting hunting magazines out there over the past couple months and give you guys each a kind of Cliff Notes version of the best deer hunting article in each one. So here goes. Alright, so our first magazine here is Peterson's Bow Hunting, and the article is From Bungler to Burglar by Bill Winke. And the premise of this one is simple but really important. Basically, this premise is that we are going about scouting and planning a new hunt on a new property backwards. Winke believes that most hunters go into a new property and they first look for new sign when they're scouting. Once they find that good sign, then they want to find a tree near that sign. And then finally, once they found the tree near the sign, then they'll think about how they're going to get in and out from that tree. Winke believes that's the opposite of what we should be doing. Contrary, what you should do is when you go into a new property, the first thing you should try to do is find the best entry and access route, or rather entry and exit route in and out of that stand without you spooking deer. If you can do that, all the other things fall in place. Winke believes you go in, find the best entry and exit routes in and out of your tree stands, find how to get in that property, then start looking for adequate trees and then decent sign. If you do those things first, you're going to have an opportunity to actually see deer. But on the other hand, what most people do is they look for that great sign and they don't ever think about how they're going to get in and out from hunting it. So what happens is they hike in there, try to hunt this really hot sign, but they've already spooked all the deer that might have been there, in the first place. So Winke believes instead you should think about creating great access routes by utilizing things like creeks, ditches, standing corn, coming up the backside of a ridge, or whatever you can do to avoid being seen, heard, or smelled by any deer on that property when you're going in to hunt or when you're leaving after hunt. That, in a nutshell, is what From Bunglers to Burglars is all about. So our next article is from North American Whitetail, and it is Forage Without Farming by Steve Bartilla. And this article is a pretty cool one as it demonstrates a really easy and affordable way to get a food plot into the ground without having a lot of equipment. Here's the basic gist of it. Bartilla explains a situation where if you can find an area that is lightly vegetated, let's say maybe it's an old crop field or an old food plot or somewhere where there's some grass but it's not super crazy thick, you can go in and actually get a food plot planted without having to disc that ground up. Here's what you have to do. Step number 1 is simply going in there with some kind of weed kill, like Roundup, in a backpack sprayer and spraying this area so that weed cover starts dying. Then wait 7 to 10 days until that weed kill actually starts working. Once it does, then you go in there with your little hand seeder, spread your food plot seed, whatever it is that you want to use. Bartilla recommends small seeds like clover or brassicas or even oats or rye. But once you broadcast that over the dead and dying weeds, what happens is that weed cover starts dying and falls on top of the seeds, forming kind of a blanket of thatch. Bartilla calls this the thatch blanket method for food plotting. So what this does is it provides kind of a blanket over top of those seeds to do 2 things. It shades them, and then it also provides them sort of a moisture holding barrier. So when that rain does come, you do want to plant your seeds just before rain. When that rain does come, it holds the moisture down with the soil, with the seeds, and allows those seeds to germinate. So without even disking up that soil, without needing any fancy equipment, you can simply spray weed kill, broadcast your seeds, and let that thatch serve as a kind of germinating blanket to get your food plot up and out of the ground on a super cheap budget. So pretty cool idea there from Steve Bartilla. Alright, our next magazine is Quality Whitetails magazine. The article is Precision Deer Habitat by Jeff Sturgis. And I really like this one because a lot of my own habitat management philosophy revolves around similar concepts to what Jeff has shared here. And that's probably because I've learned a lot from Jeff in the past. Now, the basic takeaway here in the article is simply the fact that a great property with tons of great cover and great food is no good at all if you can't actually hunt that property, and if you're not actually thoughtful about where you implement those hunting improvements, or habitat improvements, because all that is for naught if you can't actually get in and out and actually hunt without spooking deer. So to do that, Jeff recommends a couple things. Number one, try to make your hunting property as efficient as possible. He recommends doing a little exercise where you look at your farm and you kind of cross off any area that is within 150 yards of a hunter access trail, any acreage that's within 150 yards downwind of a stand location, or any portion of your land where deer is likely to hear you access, see you access a stand, or smell you while you access a stand. Once you mark off all those pieces on a property, look at what you have left. Jeff recommends that leftover area should be at least 60% of your property to be high efficiency. Unfortunately, most people that he talks to have less than 10% of their property left. So to do that, he recommends being really thoughtful about where you place your habitat improvements, how you organize everything, and trying to define where those deer are going to move, to make sure that when you go into your property to hunt or to access a stand, that you are moving through places where you don't think there are going to be deer. Because again, all the great habitat improvements in the world won't do you any good if you're consistently spooking those deer when they go to them. And that's really the main takeaway of this article. There's a lot more to it, but that's the big take-home message. And I think the final piece is that a great indicator that you're doing well with this type of thoughtful habitat improvement and planning is by daylight activity. And really daylight trail camera pictures of mature bucks. If you're seeing significant amounts, I think Jeff would recommend something like 50% of your trail camera pictures of mature bucks being during daylight, then you are doing something right. The next magazine is Outdoor Life, in an article called Wise Acres by Alex Robinson. And this is taking a look at how the average everyday guy can buy his own piece of hunting ground for a relatively affordable rate. And interviewed in this article is Dan Perez of Whitetail Properties, and he claims that you can own 40 acres that will produce good hunting for mature deer season after season for $30,000 down, give or take, plus a yearly payment that's less than what you paid to lease a hunting property. Now, how do you do this? Well, here's a couple kind of basics. Number one, think about cash flow and think about long term. They recommend trying to find a property with 50 to 60% of the property leased out for agriculture. So you're renting crop ground to a farmer for a certain annual fee. Also, you can take a look at logging some of your property to get some additional income, but if you can do this, if you have that income coming in for agriculture, it'll offset your monthly payments or your yearly payments and make it a little more cash flow neutral, or at least in the long term can help negate some of those costs. Additionally, an important thing to consider when buying a small property like this is your location, making sure you're in the right neighborhood, making sure you have the right neighbors, and that your property fits into it well from a hunting perspective. That's a really important consideration when you're trying to buy a small property like this. Also, another couple of things they recommended is maybe even considering leasing out your property for different types of hunting. Maybe you're just an archery hunter, so you wouldn't mind having a guy come in late muzzleloader season, or maybe turkey hunting season, or upland birds, or whatever it is. Again, the kind of real premise of this article is finding creative ways to make additional money off of your small property to offset that cost. It's kind of an interesting thing they have here. They've got a land ownership flow chart, which I won't try to explain to you, but if you are interested in trying to better understand how you might be able to afford a small property, they do a nice example here where they show the cost of an example 40-acre piece, and then all the different ways that you can make money from it, what the financing might be, and how you might be able to kind of make all the dollars and cents add up.